The Dallas Stars may have made the biggest splash at the trade deadline getting Mikko Rantanen, but injuries have hurt the team since then. Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars is here to talk about that and the outlook for the stretch drive to the playoffs next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Dallas Stars, Joey Erickson. And Joey, an interesting time for the Stars. Injuries really sort of getting in the way as we hit the stretch drive. Give me the latest on the injuries and when some of these key players may be able to return to the lineup.
Well, unfortunately, we probably won't see Miro Heiskanen until round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's in the gym, but he still has not skated yet. So we are anxiously awaiting the return of the Dallas Stars' best defenseman. Tyler Seguin has been skating, which is a positive sign, and there's a possibility he could be back in a couple of weeks, maybe the final week and a half, maybe two of the regular season, and that would be a nice addition to the lineup. But really the important factor and important player in all of this is Miro Heiskanen. He's the Stars' best overall player. He controls and can dictate the flow of the game, and it feels like his absence is starting to take a toll on Dallas, and you're trying to add Mikko Rantanen at the trade deadline. There's just a lot of moving parts, and unfortunately right now the Stars are just not playing very good hockey, and it comes at a really tough time. And Dallas won the other day against Philadelphia, and Stars fans I think have more concerns coming out of that win than they have had previously this season. So there's a lot of moving parts, and hopefully they can sort of get some of these ironed out before the end of the regular season. But I think a lot of their future in the Stanley Cup playoffs is going to be hindered on number 4 and what he's going to look like coming back, because it's a knee injury. You got to be careful with those things, and who knows what type of player he's going to be right away from a tough knee injury.
Who are some of the players who are trying to pick up the slack for Heiskanen, and are they having any success at this point?
Oh, Thomas Harley, night and day, has been probably the Stars' best overall player since Miro Heiskanen went down. He's been so good and really has filled in as a nice number one defenseman in Dallas. Unfortunately, he can't do it himself, but he has been on an absolute tear offensively. He scored a couple of goals the other night, including the overtime winner against Philadelphia, and he's giving Dallas a lot of hard minutes. He played over 30 minutes in an overtime game a couple of days ago, so he's logging some heavy minutes, and so is other defensemen like Esa Lindell. He's a workhorse on the PK. He's played the most penalty kill minutes this season in the NHL, so those are two guys that are having to shoulder a lot of the load. And right now the offense has hit a bit of a dry spell too, so they're having to outscore their problems a bit as well, because they don't have a lot of quality on the back end. When you look at guys like Matt Dumba, Cody Ceci, and Lyubushkin, who have all had nice years or stretches in Dallas, but you're asking a lot for some of those guys to play almost 22 minutes and play against some of the best players in the world on a night in and night out basis. So Thomas Harley, though, has been the highlight out of everything. I think he's starting to gain a lot of respect among the league, especially after that Four Nations tournament that he had. He just kind of got inserted into the lineup and did an excellent job. So he's been a bright spot, and I think Stars fans can be happy that, well, they got a nice Robin to their Batman for the next decade here in Dallas.
Yeah, and if they can get them both on the ice for the playoffs and both healthy, that would have a big impact, I'm sure. You mentioned Mikko Rantanen and his insertion into the lineup. How is he looking so far? How does he fit in? And what does he need to do to fully integrate himself into this lineup?
Yeah, I think he's looked just fine in Dallas. And I know there's a lot of fans out there that have a lot of concerns. He's not worth $12 million this. He's not worth $12 million that. And I can understand that, but he had to uproot his life a couple of times in the span of a month. I don't know how comfortable anybody would be, let alone, Mikko Rantanen, who plays hockey for a living. I feel like that's pretty tough. And you have to add in, he's got a family. Like that adds a lot of obstacles. And I still think he's played really well. He's just having trouble finishing a bit. And really, that's a Stars problem in general. It's not him. He's got 4 points in his first 7 games. It's just give him some time to integrate. He's looked really nice alongside Rope Ahens and Jason Robertson. I think that's a line that will continue to evolve and get better as they get comfortable with one another. I think they're forcing the issue a bit. I think they're trying to delay, or at least they're trying to get Mikko involved. They're almost forcing it a bit too much. And I think if they just play the way they're capable of as individuals, and sometimes they can be a bit more selfish, you're going to start to see that chemistry really start to thrive. So I think he's looked just fine, and you can look at some of the advanced numbers, and it's not god awful. I think the Stars are just hitting the stretch where they're having issues putting the puck in the back of the nets, and they've had that early in the season. I've said it on a couple episodes. It just feels like they're reverting back to like the first 2 months of the year where everything's just really hard for them right now. And it's better now in March than it is in about a month when you're in the playoffs, if you ask me.
How about the power play? I mean, goal scoring, their top 5, goals against their top 5, PK top 5, power play only, and I'll put that in air quotes, 13th in the league right now. Mm-hmm. How is the power play? How has Rantanen affected the power play?
Well, the power play has actually been pretty scorching hot since about February, which is a good sign. Because at one point, if you asked me this question a few months ago, I think they were probably about 23rd in power play percentage. So they've really turned a corner. They've been excellent on home ice. I think they have the second best power play on home ice. On the road has been a different story, but they're just moving the puck a lot better. And Thomas Harley has actually had a huge effect on the power play as well. Miro Heiskanen usually is that quarterback on their top unit, but once he went down, Thomas Harley has filled in, and he has a lot more of an offensive prowess. He likes to be aggressive and push the issue, and he likes to shoot the puck a bit more. And I think that's led to the power play starting to pick up a bit, which has been great. Mikko, they're trying to figure out a spot for him. I think in Colorado, for the most part, he was sort of a net front guy, kind of around the goal line. And they've kind of tinkered with that. We've seen him on the flank a little bit on the right side. He does have a power play goal. Actually came in his first game with Dallas, and there's a lot of weapons right now that Dallas can deploy. So I think right now it's finding the right chemistry and unit for head coach Pete DeBoer. Because the other night they had a 5-man unit that didn't include Mikko Rantanen, and they were moving the puck around well. So there's just a lot of different weapons now that they have to sort of integrate. And I think Mikko, once he gets some more comfortable, we saw him the other day beneath the end line. And I think that's where he can kind of be his most dangerous, because he is a really good playmaker. And of course he can score at an elite rate. But I think if they get him near more the front of the net, he'll be able to do a bit more damage.
Central Division is tough. It's loaded. Yeah. How important is it for the Dallas Stars to have home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs?
Man, that's a tough question. I would love to say it really is important, but Dallas has had home ice advantage under Pete DeBoer a few years, and they've never won a game one. They've always struggled, and last year they went down 2-0 to the Vegas Golden Knights in round one. So I don't know if it really matters per se, but it does matter for game 7, I guess. And I think the Stars would like to have home ice. We haven't heard a lot of talk coming out of, press conferences or within the locker room about where they want to finish until recently, where Pete DeBoer said, we're trying to win home ice. We're trying to provide some separation with Colorado, who's humming recently. So there obviously is there is a push to win home ice. And I think that would be huge, especially for Dallas at this point, because you may not have Miro back for game 1 or game 2. It could be in the middle of that series. So if Dallas has to sort of just kind of hang around and maybe they can get him back, and then they have to maybe win game 6 on the road, and then they can come home in a game 7, I think that would be huge. So I would say it's maybe 52% important if that's a number. It just feels like nowadays it's so there's so much parity in the league. It just feels like it really doesn't matter, but it would be nice to have game 7 at home if you need it.
All right. Joey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
Yeah, you can find me at Joey the Jet 19 on Twitter. And of course, follow us on Locked On Stars. It's on Twitter as well. And you can, of course, find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, just like this one. And always a pleasure to join you, Gil, on Locked On NHL. And appreciate you having me on. And good luck the rest of the way. Hopefully we can catch up again in a much much better spot for Dallas.
Sounds good, Joey. Thank you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.